All professional runners have had their ups and downs throughout their career. After all, trying to maintain the grueling mileage, workouts, and recovery for well over a decade can take a tremendous toll on the mind and body. Some have handled the arduous routine of an elite athlete quite well, whereas others will struggle to keep up and will eventually throw in the towel. The athlete in question had a fascinating balance of these two scenarios, as while their career was more than bleak in quite a few sections of their career, they also led the pack as one of the fastest American runners to ever exist, and set the bar for how fast Americans could go today. This is the story of the American Mile hero, Alan Webb. Alan Webb is a mid-distance runner hailing from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Eventually moving to Virginia to become a stud at South Lakes High School, he quickly began to take names from the state's finest, grabbing a silver medal at the state cross-country meet and winning the 3,200-meter state race on the track side of things. This trend of dominance continued into his sophomore year as well, winning his first cross-country title and improving his mile time to a staggering 4:06.9, a time that broke Jim Ryan's sophomore record by over a second and destroyed the 1,600-meter field at the Virginia State meet. Junior year, Webb would attempt to take his cross-country skills to the next level, trying to tackle the entire nation's best runners at Foot Locker Nationals, and finished with a respectable top 10 placement. His following track season had already inched him closer towards a sub 4-minute mile with a 4:03 at the Herbster Classic, and a 3:59.9 1,600-meter split at the Penn Relays, something that hadn't been done in decades, and secured a state gold and silver medal in the 1,600 and 800 respectively. Senior year is where Webb went all out and gained instant recognition on Mile Split, a website heavily focused on high school track and field and cross-country news and results. His cross-country season opener began with a massive course record, then another one, and then a third course record. He then clicked his ticket yet again to Foot Locker Nationals after dominating the South Regional meet. Going up against undefeated runner Dathan Ritzenhein, Ritzenhein pushed the pace from the start and Webb could not contest him. Despite this, finishing as a runner-up at Nationals for cross-country as a miler was nothing to scoff at, and this would only be a sneak preview into what Webb had to offer during the winter season. Webb opens up the winter season with a 9:06 3,200. Shortly after, he's thrown into the wolves with a few elite athletes at the New Balance Games at the Armory, one of the most popular indoor tracks to run at on the East Coast. Sources cite cryptic emails and rumors about why this particular event was going to be so special, as Webb had seemingly gone undetected and wasn't known to have even been racing there until his name was formally announced at the starting line. The crowd's eyes were glued to the track when Webb's name was announced, and everyone wanted to see what the high school superstar had to offer. And sure enough, he would get his first taste of American running history.
He came in second, but nobody's broken a 4-minute mile in how long in high school.
Alan Webb had run the first ever indoor sub-4 mile as an American high school runner, and was the fourth to do it counting outdoor times, the last one happening 34 years prior. It had been decades since American distance running had a prodigy like this, and Webb was the one to ignite the flame to get the scene going again. He wrapped up his indoor season with an 8:45 2-mile and a double indoor states win in the 1,000 and 1,600, the former being a national record that stood since 1987. If you thought he was a threat after this, it was really just the beginning, because if there's anything his indoor mile tells us, it's that it wasn't just high school or even collegiate runners that had to look out for him. On April 14, 2001, Alan Webb took part in the Arcadia Invitational Mile, one of the most stacked high school mile races by far. His main opponent, Ryan Hall, was also a contender to win this race with a 4:06 PR. Neither athlete held back coming through the first lap in 59, and were still on pace to run sub-4 at the halfway point. 3:03 was the time at the third lap, so it was down to Webb or Hall to see what they had in the tank, and as Webb surges, he tries to replicate yet again what he did earlier that winter at the Armory. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for Webb to break 4 outdoors. A 58 definitely got him close, but once he dropped Hall, he couldn't quite chase the clock fast enough to get him under that barrier. Thankfully, Webb had been granted an opportunity so extraordinary that he couldn't possibly turn it down. He had the chance to race against not just the best in the country, but against the best mid-distance runners in the entire world. He was invited to run at the legendary Pre-Fontaine Classic for his last high school hoorah at the mile.
Backstretch headwind is going to really be fighting hard. You can see the flags fluttering.
And we get a clean start for Alan Webb. The field is just ripe. He's in the middle of the pack right now, but what a way to start.
It's a windy day in Oregon, but the weather was perfect otherwise. We all know Webb was looking to go under 4 here, but many also wanted to see if he could break Jim Ryan's record of 3:55.3 set on June 27, 1965. A tall task to ask for the South Lake senior, but nonetheless he was offered the perfect field of athletes to do so, especially with titans like Kevin Sullivan, Bernard Lagat, and the world record holder for the 1500 and mile, Isham El Garouge. Webb looks a bit cautious at the beginning of the race as the field storms through the first lap in 55 to 57, and Webb comes through in 58.5. A perfect start for him despite being in last place. 158 would be the halfway point and was still looking bang on as they entered the make or break section, the 3rd lap. Webb runs another perfect 60-second lap for 258, and if there's anything we know about Webb's kick, it's that he will pretty much close in 60 or under every single time. What everyone wasn't expecting though was a kick so extreme that even the most prolific milers in the world had to worry about a high school kid passing them, as Webb ran perhaps the best final 400 meters ever seen from a high school miler.
Isham El Garouge coming away with this one. Isham El Garouge from Morocco will cross the finish line unofficially 3:49.93, and for Alan Webb, has he done it?
It looks to me like Webb may have gone under 3:55. 3:40. Webb 3:53.40.
He has done it.
Annihilates Jeff Ryan's record.
Unbelievable. You know, there are so many people that said the kid could not do it. It's too early in his career, but you put him with the king, Isham El Garouge in second, Bernard Lagat in third. But the big story, Alan Webb, the high school senior from Virginia, 3:53.43. Let's go down to Tim McClune. Tim.
3:53.43. Not only did Alan Webb run the first outdoor sub-4 mile as a high schooler in over 3.5 decades, he ran a near 7-second PR to take the new high school mile record from Jim Ryan, beating that by 2 entire seconds as well. The impact this single race had on the track and field scene was so emphatic that it turned Webb into an overnight sensation. He shared that moment with Isham El Garouge right after he finished, because he knew that not only did he have someone to strive to compete against, but he now had the strive to become perhaps the best miler in the world, something that an American hadn't done in just about forever. He was getting fanfare everywhere he went. He was on the cover of sporting magazines and even ended up as a guest on the David Letterman show. He showed to be a charismatic and charming kid with his newfound talent that wanted to change the running world with his passion for the mile. But with basically the entire track and field community watching, how was Webb going to handle such a jarring pressure as someone who's still growing out of their adolescence?
Everybody, and then laps ago I just gave it everything I had.
Well, you ripped it up here and this crowd went wild. You know, America has been waiting for you. You seem like a really nice guy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
I'd just like to make a shout out to everybody at South Lakes. I love you guys. Woo! I'll be home on Monday. All right.
Webb capped off his senior year with an 800-meter state record and title, along with placing 5th at the USATF Championships in the 1500. His fame in the community remained as such and was unsurprisingly offered a spot on just about every noteworthy collegiate team. Colleges weren't the only ones looking for Allen though, as Nike thought they had the highest chance of securing a contract with him, with figures rumored up to $250,000 per year. Webb had heard this more so indirectly from his parents and high school coach, as Nike had trouble getting in contact with Allen directly to have a more formal discussion with him about it. One of Nike's own coaches, John Cook, had even provided testimony that one of his athletes had basically camped outside of his house to try and talk to Webb one-on-one. And soon enough, Webb's parents would have Allen seldom leave the confines of his house to prevent these confrontations. A major role that played in their deniability with Nike was that Webb wanted to enroll at the University of Michigan already, especially since his father worked there and wanted to push for an education there, combined with Allen's gravitation towards the collegiate competition. Being coached under Michigan's finest, Rob Warhurst, all was seeming fine and dandy. But soon enough, this student-athlete combination in college for Webb would seem to fall apart at the seams rather quickly. Webb's first major collegiate debut would occur at the NCAA D1 Great Lakes Regional Race, where he placed second in the 10K, an event he had virtually no prior experience in, and proceeded to take 11th as a freshman at the official national meet, being Michigan's best runner on the team and one of the highest performing freshmen. All things considered, this was a pretty formidable start for the Wolverine, but indoor season did not tread lightly on Webb at all. He would face struggle after struggle both physically and mentally, and it would result in perhaps the most abrupt transition of his career. Author Chris Lear would shout out the Michigan track team for half a year and would gather quite a bit of info regarding Alan's transition into collegiate running. We noted that his cross-country season went very well, and he was leading workouts with the top dogs, but he faced an injury extremely early into his winter preparation around December 2001, specifically Achilles tendonitis on his right foot. After a month and a half of no consistent relief, Webb decided to throw in the towel for the indoor season and redshirt, meaning he would have an extra year of eligibility due to no formal participation in any meets. Teammates also noticed that Webb rarely engaged with the team due to his slow progress with his injury. Once his fitness was revitalized, he began engaging with the team again, and this was hopefully just a small blip on his track resume. It was a bit peculiar that his passion for the team seemed to correlate a bit too heavily with his performance at times, but nevertheless, Webb was genuinely happy to get back on the grind. Spring season came, and Webb wanted to run 3:38 for his 1500 opener. He was not only 6 seconds shy of this goal, but placed 9th in this race as well. He did win the Big Ten championships for his first major collegiate win, but came in 4th at the 2002 NCAAs, which again is great for a freshman, but in the eyes of the public's expectations, this didn't seem to be enough, and Alan seemed to share the same sentiment.
Now tries to regain the lead, and Don Sage of Stanford coming on strong. It's Sage and Webb, and there's Mulvaney of Arkansas, Don Sage of Stanford. Webb finishes 3rd or 4th.
You know, Sage ran a good race.
Rumors also floated around of Webb remaining in contact with his high school coach, Scott Rasko, but Rasko denied this claim. They initially tried using Rasko's workouts combined with Warhurst's coaching fundamentals, but these only seemed to clash than they did help Webb. Just mere days before Webb's 1500-meter final at NCAAs, USA Today ran a story on him potentially turning professional, something that left a very bitter taste throughout Michigan's distance squad. Webb had arrived back home in June after battling a series of mental and physical strifes, and signed with Nike not long after, along with continuing his studies at George Mason University. Warhurst displayed concerns with this decision and said, quote, "These aren't high school or college kids. These are men earning a living. They're not going to be intimidated by a 19-year-old who ran 3:53. No one knew what the future held for Alan Webb. Only time would tell whether or not he would become America's shining star once again. Webb's second transition back to being coached by Rasko was off to an arguably more rocky start than his collegiate one. He ran 3:44 indoors for the 1500, but couldn't surpass his time outdoor season and just barely broke 150 in the 800 as well. 2004's indoor season was also a bit lackluster, but noticeably kicked things into high gear when outdoor came around. 342, 335, 333, and 332 were all clear indicators that the old Alan Webb was back underway and ready to take on the country's best to qualify for the 2004 Greece Olympics. Cruising through the first 2 rounds, Webb would find himself in the final round for a chance on the USA team, and in the most Alan Webb way possible, he was able to get the crowd going nuts again for the first time in a while.
Sending a message. He is perhaps the next great American miler. He looks it here at the trials. He put a big lap on him, and he's going to cruise to the finish line. Gruber is in there second. Myers is third. It doesn't look like anybody will catch them. Webb wins. Gruber second.
Time you could win the Olympics, but in this heat, 109 degrees, he doesn't feel the heat. You know, when I saw him warming up in a long sleeve shirt, I realized that the heat was lost on him. Didn't matter.
So Alan Webb has achieved the A standard. He wins the trials, and he will head to Athens, Greece to compete in the 1500.
Webb had qualified for his first Olympic Games in the 1500, ready to represent the USA for the redemption arc of a lifetime. Like the USA trials, you need to run 2 rounds prior to get to the finals, which at the international level is a daunting task. At the quarterfinals, you can expect these races to be quite tactical and a bit technical depending on what moves are made during the middle laps. The final 2 or 300 can also be extremely frightening, as everyone is trying to qualify but not completely overdo it to burn out for their next round. Webb's heat for the first 2 laps went out a bit conservative, as they came through the 800 mark in 2:01. But as the 3rd lap rolled around, the pack immediately began to spread out, and it was time to see if he knew what to do when it came down to that final sprint.
Estevez trying to move up along his inside, and Alan Webb struggling in the back of the pack.
trying to put on a burst here at the end. As they come across the line, he will not be in the top 5. Now must hope to advance on time. The next 9 fastest runners over 3 heats will advance to the semifinals on Sunday.
This is going to be very tough for him to get through to the next round. As you mentioned, Tom, he ran a lot of extra yards. I didn't think it was anything wrong.
Missing the semifinals round by just a fraction of a second, Alan Webb was eliminated from the 1500, and the dejected look on his face says more than anyone could have said at that stadium. What most likely cost him those tenths of a second was this move to pass Johan Cranje. Webb was far too on the inside and tripped up on Cranje to break Webb's momentum completely and threw away his chance at a potential medal. 2005 showed to be a promising year making the World Championships finals in Helsinki, but sadly came home with the 9th place. On the other hand, he did break the 2-mile American record and ran 3:48 in the mile, so there was still something in the air, but when it came to more tactical races, Webb's lack of planning seemed to be on display the more and more he raced internationally. In the eyes of the American fans, critics had just about enough of what they perceived to be Webb's antics. He needed to put something together extravagant in his career soon to solidify himself as the world phenomenon everyone made him out to be. And as 2007 approached, this might have been the year of the Webb. If international titles weren't in the cards for Alan Webb, perhaps going for records again would be more his forte, as breaking the 2-mile American one and flirting with the legendary mile record was looking to be a reality despite a very shaky 2006. For reference, the American mile is held by Steve Scott in 1985, and at this point in time is the 11th fastest mile ever run. But Webb being an inherently gutsy racer, this was perhaps his best shot at making the history books as an elite runner. Indoor season looked much better than his past seasons. He took plenty of firsts at respectable meets and got a 3:55 under him to gear up for outdoor. This time though, Webb had supposedly done a workout so absurd that there was no doubt he was ready to break the mile record. It was 8 by 800. The 800s got faster and the rest got longer by 15 seconds, starting at 1 minute. His first 800 was 2:11 and he eventually worked all the way down to 2 flat. Normally he would be done here with his teammates, but his coach wanted another rep out of Webb, so he told him to just, well, crush it. 155 was what they had in their minds, but Alan came through in 148.9. There was nothing more to say at this point, and to cap it all off, he ran 3:30 in the 15 in Paris. After all these years, Alan Webb was finally primed and ready, and at a meet all set up for him in Braschaat, Belgium, it was time to drop the hammer to put it all together.
25 years ago, and 25 years, 14 days ago, Steve Scott, what do you run? 3:47.69 for the mile. He went through.
The plan was simple: 151 through the half, 248 at lap 3, and leaving the rest for Alan to close out. The first lap went perfect, 55.9, going stride for stride with Steve Scott. Halfway, Webb comes through just a tad slower in 153.5, but certainly not a drastic enough drop in pace that a little tempo change can't fix. 248 was the original goal on lap 3, but as they came through in 250, it was starting to cut it a little close, as he needed to close in around no slower than 57 flat if he wanted to rewrite American history. There was no pacer anymore. It was all for Webb to take what might have been one of the last viable chances at such a record, and with 200 to go, everything could not have looked more perfect.
28, and he has it. Alan Webb is on American record pace. He's ahead of the ghost of Steve Scott. 3:46.93. He just got the American record. Got it through your head.
I'm the fastest American to ever run the mile.
Well, what do you say to Steve Scott right now?
Thanks for setting the bar, man. He made me reach for something I didn't think I could do. Now, it's my turn, but it was a lot of fun chasing it. I think I can go faster too.
Alan Webb ran the new American record that was finally enough to triumph Steve Scott's 25-year-old record and had ran the 8th fastest time in the entire world. To run this time after a grand series of environmental changes, injuries, pressure, and disappointing race after another, there was one title he was able to grasp at that etched his name in the history books, and to this day only Matthew Centrowitz has come within reach of this record, running 3:49.26 in 2021. Alan Webb's record may remain untouchable in American track and field for even more years to come, but if there's anything a runner like Webb wanted to do, it was to run some of the fastest times in the entire world, and I think it goes without saying that he most certainly accomplished that. So where did Alan Webb go from here? After all, the 2008 Olympics was right underway. The problem was, Webb didn't even make it to the Olympics. He finished 5th in the trials and didn't run the qualifying standard since the race was extremely tactical. As he got older, this only became a tougher task to even consider trying again in 2012, and with no showing at the trials and a notable decline in race participation and performance, it seemed like Webb's career had come to a steadily slow end, and would officially end his running career at the 2014 Wanamaker Mile. This wasn't to say he didn't stop competing though, as after retiring in 2014, Webb briefly transitioned into professional triathlete races, and while he wasn't at the tippity top at these events, he seemed to find himself as a relatively respected competitor given how fast he adapted. But this came to a permanent halt after just a year of competing. As of now, Alan Webb is still more or less trying to juggle his life around in terms of his career path. He took up an assistant cross-country coaching position at Westview High School, but then eventually left that and became the distance coach for D1 school Little Rock University in 2019. Webb ran his first half marathon and marathon with a 1:13:20 and 2:48:25 respectively. He then left his current coaching job to become a distance coach at the Catholic High School for Boys in August 2021, which he then left after a year to now become the head coach at Ave Maria University. He still continues to participate in local races today. Alan Webb is a historical figurehead in the American track and field scene. From an innocent high schooler that found a hidden talent to run unheard of mile times, to the fastest elite American to run the race, is something that hasn't been even remotely contested since he performed those back in the 2000s. He was someone who knew how to run with guts from the start, and thrived in the moment when the pace was grueling at all times. And even when the races did go out hard, he managed to find another gear to kick even harder, and also took some names off of some of the best mid-distance runners to ever live. While Mr. Webb has had his decent share of incredible accomplishments, there's unfortunately a decent list of lows and inconsistencies that are worth pointing out to truly grasp why his career went the way it did. Alan was not a remotely consistent runner, nor was he exactly a diligent one. If the race was ever tactical and the field was deep enough, you could pretty much count him out with 200 to go every time. Not making the semis at the Olympics and not even qualifying the next time is a confusing dichotomy to look at when you see how fast he's capable of going. But his racing mentality since he was a kid was to simply just run fast. And while it's certainly reflected through his PRs on paper, this type of approach will rarely see practicality when it comes to the international level. Secondly, Alan's general lack of commitment to a lot of his life decisions put a damper on his early career, combined with the unexpected amount of near worldwide fame he acquired overnight. This consistently high-octane pressure combined with his indecisiveness led him to a very short and disappointing collegiate career. His elite career was then convoluted with underwhelming international performances, random experimentations with the 5 and 10K, and even nowadays has trouble committing to a coaching position for more than a couple years. Perhaps a bit harsh, but it's an honest analysis that very few have made, and should be worth noting for those who want to learn from Alan's career. It's a shame this mindset reflected so heavily on Webb's time as a professional athlete, but he still managed to accomplish something beautiful for the sport of track and field. At one point, he single-handedly brought back the spark that no one could for many, many years in American distance running. A firework that erupted for the whole country to display that USA is a contender for international praise. And while Webb wasn't able to live up to those expectations, he still managed to have a very solid career, and it would truly be dismissive to say that wasn't true, even for his biggest critics. Webb's name still remains as the fastest American to ever run a mile, and until someone even comes close to that, he will remain the country's hero for an event that holds dear to the country's heart. This has been the story of Alan Webb, and thanks for watching. Thank you to all my patrons for supporting the channel, and if you want to show some support, come on over and become a patron, drop a sub, and peep the Instagram too. I'll see you all in whatever video I upload next, and take care.